Today, we are going to learn how we can use number lines to explain why fractions are equivalent. Sal rode his bike 3/4 a mile to school. Name two fractions that are equivalent to 3/4. Well, if we look at this number line right here, we have a number line from 0 all the way to 1. We're going to divide the number line into 4 equal groups. So we have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 1, which would equal 4/4. If he rode his bike 3/4 of the way, then he started at 0 and bicycled all the way to right here. So if he rode his bike another 1/4, then he would have ridden it a whole mile. Step number 1, we're going to show 3/4 on a number line. So we have this number line over here, and we have it divided into 4 equal parts. We have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4. And we have 3/4 highlighted. I'm going to highlight it in red for you. Now, we're going to take our same number line, but we're going to repeat it down here, and we still have our fourths. We have 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4, but we're going to draw lines in between. So now we're going to divide it into 8 equal parts. So now we have 8 equal parts because we have 1/8, and then we have 2/8, which is the same as 1/4 if you look down. Then we have 3/8, and then we have 4/8, which is going to be the same as 2/4. They're both equal or equivalent to a half. And then we have 5/8, and then we have 6/8, which is going to be the same as 3/4. And then we have 7/8, and then we have 8/8, which is going to be the same as 1 whole. Now, we're going to take that same number line and we're going to divide it into even smaller sections. So now we're going to divide it into 12s. So here's the number line right here. And we have 1/12, 2/12, 3/12, 4/12, 5/12, 6/12, 7/12, 8/12, 9/12, 11/12, 10/12, 11/12, and 12/12, which is 1 whole. If we draw our lines straight down, I can see that 1/2, 4/8, and 6/12 are all the same number. I can also see that 1/4, 2/8, and 3/12 are the same number, and that 3/4, 6/8, and 9/12 are the same number. If I would write them out, I would multiply by the same number and I would get an equivalent fraction. So for example, I'm going to write it right over here on the bottom. If I wrote 3/4 and I multiplied both sides by 2, remember 2 over 2 is equal to 1 whole, I'm going to get 6/8. Therefore, when I look at my own number line, I can see that 3/4 and 6/8 are the same number. I can also take 3/4 and multiply both sides by 3. 3 over 3 is equivalent to 1, so I'm multiplying by 1 whole, and I would get 9/12. So I can see that 3/4 is also equivalent to 9/12. We are just using a number line to help us understand equivalent fractions. Before we begin our guided practice, let's look at another example on the top of the page. So on another example, it says you can use a number line to find equivalent fractions that are greater than or equal to 1. Now remember, if 1 is a whole, then the top number and bottom number are the same. So for example, 3/3 and 6/6 are both equal to a whole, because 3/3 is 3 parts out of 3, and 6/6 is 6 parts out of 6. So we are using this number line right here. It's listed from 0 to 2 actually, because 6 over 3 and 12 over 6 are equal to 2. If you would just divide, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 12 divided by 6 is 2. So On the bottom, I can see that they have broken this number line apart by sixes. And on the top, I can see that they've broken this number line apart by thirds. So all they're doing is using the same number line to show which numbers equal the same amount. So for example, we have 1/3 is equal to 2/6, and 2/3 is equal to 4/6. And then the other ones that are circled are all greater than 1. If the number of your fraction on top is greater than the number on the bottom, then it is greater than one whole number. So 4/3 is equal to 8/6, 5/3 is equal to 10/6, and 6/3 is equal to 12/6. Now let's look at number 1. Use the number lines on the previous page to write a fraction equivalent to 2/8. Why are the fractions equivalent? Explain. Well, since we're on a different page, you can look back on your other page, but I am going to draw a new number line to help you explain it. So here's our number line right here. This is going to be 0, and this is going to be 1 whole. On the bottom, I'm going to separate the fractions into fourths. So if I'm going to separate this into 4 equal parts, I'm going to find the middle, and then I'm going to draw a line in between the middle and each of the other sides. So this side right here would be 1/4, and this would be 2/4, and this would be 3/4, and 1 whole would be 4/4. Now I'm going to take another color, and I'm going to divide the same number line into smaller parts. So I'm going to divide them into eighths. So between each fourth, I'm going to draw another line. So I would have, this would be 1/8. This line that I already have will be my second line, so that's going to be 2/8. This line right in between is going to be 3/8. This line that I already have is 4/8. In between that is going to be 5/8. The line that I already have is 6/8. Oops, sorry, that's an 8. In between that would be 7/8. And 1 is going to equal to 8/8. So I can see clearly that 2/8 and 1/4 are the same. Eighths are just broken into smaller parts. 4/8 and 2/4 are exactly the same. 6/8 and 3/4 are the same. And 8/8 and 4/4 are the same. They're both equal to a whole. If you're ever not sure, you can take your numbers and multiply or divide like we have been practicing. So for example, you could take 2/8 and then you can take 1/4. And if we're dividing by 2 to get to 1 and we're dividing by 2 to get to 4, you know that you did it correct because you're using the same number. For numbers 2 and 3, use the number line below. We need to write an equivalent fraction for 1/3 and write an equivalent fraction for 1/2. So let's finish our number line. I can see on the bottom that they're using 6 because the number line is broken into 6 equal pieces because I've got 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, 6/6. So all you have to do is continue the number line and fill out the bottom. So we have 1/6. This bottom part is going to be 2/6. The next one is going to be 3/6. 4/6 and 5/6 are already written for you. So an equivalent fraction for 1/3 is just 2/6, and an equivalent fraction for 1/2 is just 3/6. And I know that 1 is half of 2 and 3 is half of 6. So therefore we have the correct answers. When you are doing the independent practice, especially for numbers 4 and 5, it's going to ask you which fractions are equivalent. So make sure you multiply or divide by the same number to get an equivalent fraction. On numbers 6 and 7, all you have to do is fill out the number line and write equivalent fractions. Try to do these on your own, but if you are having trouble, please come see me.